All right, guys, just apologies, everyone. I am still getting everything set up, so let me just kind of share all of this around the internet, um, and we'll start chatting soon. So if there's anyone out there and they want to put in the chat whether or not they can see me and or hear me and see my screen and all of those things, that would be fantastic. All right, so we'll do that as well. Have all of that sent off. Let me just make sure here. Okay, so I can hear myself, so that's all good now. So the game plan here is to start on Fridays, generally, taking a little bit of time, streaming by end of week process, which is me essentially going through the weekly charts on all of the major indices and then going back through the daily charts again on all of the major indices. Then kind of getting a couple notes and feels for what it is that I'm looking for next week, going through some equity scans as well, reviewing a handful of trades that I've made throughout the week. You know, kind of my process when it comes to resetting and turning everything off for the week, getting everything kind of queued up and ready to go. I can put me on here as well. Here I am. Oh, let's get this in the right place like that. And then get me over here. And then I don't need to be that big either. So I'll shrink myself down there. Yeah, so again, the concept is I have kind of a end of week routine in which I try to get to the point where I can, especially on weeks like this where it's long weekends, where I can put everything behind me except my scanning for my actual trading list on Monday, which I generally do just Sunday nights as kind of a chill way to go about doing that. So just figured turn on the stream, let you guys join in. If there's something that starts happening in the comment section, that's great. Maybe we'll have a little chat. Probably about an hour, I'm thinking, and then go from there. And if this is something that ends up being popular, I'll kind of continue to go from there. So first, let's take a look here. And actually, I'm going to bring up my pen so I can note some things for you guys. But this is kind of what my end of week screen looks like. And one thing that I like about Trade Ideas, links right below if you're interested, but it's you can set up all of these different layouts for what you're doing. So this particular layout is, get it out of here. I don't want you. This particular layout basically is just my scanning layout. It's, as you can see, very basic, large chart. Really kind of gets in the flow of things. This ETF window that you see up in the corner here, this is essentially all of the ETFs that we're going to go through. We're going to go through them twice, once for the daily and once for the weekly. But it's also has all of these position range filters. So long and short of it is the more green these filters are, I'll keep moving this around by accident, apologize. The more green that these kind of filled in bars are, the higher it is in its range, right? Starting with this being the 5-day range, 10, 20, 30, 6-month, and year. So, for example, USO we're watching here, I have sorted by the highest in 20-day range. Let's actually do that in 10 here. And you can see that XLV is actually the highest in its 10-day range, which, 2 weeks, obviously, give or take, right? 5-day range, 1 week, 20-day range, about a month, 6 months, year. That's kind of how it goes from there. So first thing I do is I want to get kind of sorted and kind of ready to go when it comes to taking a look at taking a look at what it is that what happened this week, right? So if we start and we filter everything by 5-day range, this is what happened this week. So the strongest here we see is USO, right? So of just looking at a 1 week return of the indices that I follow anyway, we're looking at a 1 year return kind of thing, right? So USO, right, obviously the strongest in this week. We had this base going on here for about a month, and we just broke right out of that, and looks like we continued higher this week. So USO obviously strong, and again, I am writing some notes here, so without showing, right, I've got iPad here with a little pencil, and what I do is I just start like a scratch pad, and I do this every time where I will just start. Let me show you. And I just call it weekend work. Weekend work. And I just start a very simple note of, my thoughts of kind of what happened at the end of the week, what happened in, throughout the week, what happened with my trading, which we'll go over some of, and then what I'm thinking may happen next week. And then I stop there. And then I go about my weekend, have a good time, step away from the market, come back on Sunday night, and that's where I'm really looking for the equities. So today is kind of a lot of cover work. So, first on the notes, and again, I notes are just important to me so I can review them later. I have to talk about some of my good trades and some of my bad trades, and we'll go over that. But first, it's just what happened, right? So, the first note I make is that USO seems to be the strongest index of the week. Again, for the ones I follow, I'm planning on expanding these. I may go as crazy as kind of JC goes, where he looks at like 5,000 securities or something a week. Maybe I'll start to get there. The further I go, right, the more I want to see here. But USO is the strongest index, so that means I can keep an eye on things that are in the oil or oil related sector. I'm always trying to chase relative strength for my time frame, but which is different for everyone, right? If you see position in year range, you can see it's about halfway. So USO smack dab in the middle of the range. USO is the strongest index, with XLV, which is healthcare. You can see right down in this bottom healthcare fund. That was the next. So oil and then health. And again, this will curb kind of what I'm thinking. Any of you guys who used to follow the series I did the last couple years, where I take a look at a basket of stocks and I had them trade it the next week, and I did that, and we ended up making great returns doing that. This was always kind of the process you guys never saw, is me trying to say, okay, what's working in this market and why. Actually, let me just move, center that a little bit better. So let's just keep going. And again, so noting candlestick patterns is important too, right? So if we look at healthcare, 2 weeks ago, we had a pullback. Last week, we had a spinning top, and here we pointed out of that spinning top. So far, both of these indexes I looked at are giving me a kind of a bullish feel. Now we go into MOO, which is your kind of agriculture and agriculture business. That's hit a new 2-week high, right? That one's really, really cranking here. This is what they call kind of a separating lines candlestick pattern, a big strong push down, and then the opening kind of loads up, and then away we go from here. And then next, here we go. XLK. So XLK, we're talking just tech sector. As we know, again, another separating lines play and a push up. And again, these candlestick patterns of the tanking last week, opening nearly at the same price and just completely reversing that action is generally relatively bullish. So, you know, that's a good one. And then we know that QQQ is going to be right behind that, also being within the tech sector, right? So with the multiple, so right below that, I'm just basically going to put tech still strong, of course, right? It's the way we've been seeing it. So that's the way I'm going to continue to call it. SMH being our semiconductor index, which is kind of inside and incorporated within the Qs. That one's being incredibly strong as well. We had this bullish Harami and then a continuation this week. I think we're going to see kind of a common pattern of all of these, but you can see just the insanely bullish action from the pandemic lows. Really, tech is, you can't stop it, right? So here's the first one that we haven't seen just completely ramping to a new high, and that is our broker-dealer index. However, these U-shaped kind of patterns here are super interesting when it comes to all of that action. So this could just be a slingshot getting ready to try to attack 90 next week, and that's the first in kind of the tech sector. Down to the SPY, we know the story of the SPY. It was a very tight inside week compared to some of these, but the sectors that are strong are remarkably strong, and the sectors that are weak are just not quite as weak. So we're holding that up there as well. XLF is something that's interesting, where if we zoom out here a little bit, I was on a Clubhouse today with JC from All Star, and we were talking a little bit about this sector right here with financials, which he rightly pointed out is a pretty massive part of the Canadian economy. And we're just at these highs. We just closed. We made a new weekly high above this support. So bullish, obviously, for financials. Financials can quite often be the backbone of any market. Some people, major hedge fund managers and these type of things, will not... that they will not participate, and that happens. All right, sorry, just type it in there. So new weekly high for the SPY or for the XLF. That is, for me, pretty incredibly bullish. Just that we're hitting that new on the financials, which is a very important index. We zoom in here. This is software as a service. Has been taking out forever. Obviously got hit less during the pandemic because software companies aren't as pandemic sensitive and So software service continues to take off. Again, this candle and this candle, anyone who's giving you a bear case in the market right now, you really have to question, right? Just opened at its lows, closed at its highs, opened at its lows, closed at its highs, right? You really can't get much more bullish than that. Energy looks a little bit weaker than oil. If we go to just oil and look at that strength, and then we go to XLE, you can see a little bit less strong. So you got to take a look at things when it comes to, where you're going to focus if you're going to play the oil market. SLX with steel, nice little pullback, right? Steel maybe setting up for a little bit of a continuation here. Pulled back, came and tested this low here, which was also near this high here, and then just bounced off kind of entirely. China, just through the roof. FXI is another China one. That one's taking off as well. The home builders. Now, the home builders, you usually assign of more longer term strength and less shorter term. The fact that it's continuing to climb is good. The fact that it's lagging behind some of the software industries is common, right? It's just not as volatile. It's not as high beta. So it's going to move a little bit differently. Real estate has been really hurting. It hasn't even gotten close to the pre-pandemic highs. However, again, lower beta is going to mean a lower expected return. It just means there may be room to run on these, but I'm one that I like to focus on this relative strength, and away we go. Actually setting up something cool back with the room here. These guys are we may teach a little custom formula webinar on how you can use custom formulas within Trade Ideas. So if anyone watches this and that's something you're interested in, leave a comment or type in the chat or something like that. We'll set up a time to do a live stream. IWM, the Russell is very interesting here, where it has been, if we look at the Russell versus the SPY right here, right, and look at it relative to this area right here. Oh, no data. Excellent connection. Something happened there. Interested in custom formulas, Chuck. Okay. Just talking with some of the newer guys that we have at Trade Ideas that we hired to help out with support, and they're interested in learning. So I figure instead of just teaching them in private, why don't I teach them live, and then you guys can get the benefit from that as well, is the hope. So yeah, take a look at the SPY here, and then when I go back to the IWM, you can see how it was relatively much stronger, but look at this candle with the topping tail here versus the SPY's topping tail. So the SPY carried a little bit more strength into the end of the week than the IWM. So that's something that's interesting, where Russells may generally perform with, and then we go from there. All right, so that's going to be about the end. I don't look at too much in the middle. Then I'll go to the bottom, right? So TLT on lows makes sense, right? Because, bonds kind of inverse to equities. So that makes sense as well. Gold continues to be the dog of the market, right? The gold miners, the gold ETF, the gold junior miners, they're all just dying. They're all just dead. So we need to make sure that we're not focusing on anything kind of gold related right now. XRT retail is looking interesting. Silver. So the Wall Street bets play on silver is something that's super interesting. So that's all I'm going to look at for there, right? So let's then go in and take a look. I'm sorry, I won't get distracted as much. I'm going to close down this chat. Let's go take a look at the daily, and we'll do it the other way around. So here was that whole Wall Street bets phenomenon where everyone said, oh, they're looking at silver now, where they weren't looking at silver at all. Pulled back, putting in a kind of a tight base here. So I'm going to be interested to see if we continue to break out of this base. I'm actually going to look at some silver plays to see if we can get some continuation. I like the look of this kind of long base like this, right? We have this, if we just ignore this day, we've got this kind of cup happening, and I'm going to see if this pops out here. Now, although not part of the whole Wall Street bets thing, short silver is still a super common thing, so there is a potential of a short squeeze when things happen, right? So we'll pull in here, and then I want to look at the USO, and I want to see how that closed right at highs. Again, this is another one of those separating lines play. It's a very I'm just noting, I was just typing to them that you guys want that custom formula webinar, so we will do that next week. It will be me and two other gentlemen that just started Trade Ideas, Chris and Chris. And we'll end up just talking about how to build customs, what you do. There's a couple scans that I have that are really custom heavy, which we're going to go over in a second when we start looking at equities. And that will kind of be a good way to teach. But the separating lines play is basically looking for a bearish candle that, so we'll color that in because that's our bearish candle. And then the bullish candle opens up somewhere near the close of the bearish candle and then kind of reverses that right from there. So it's not quite an engulfing candle, but it's close. And it's just looking for basically saying the bears came in, they fought, and they were just completely destroyed and reversed in. Same as a hammer or something like that. So, moral of the story, what I wrote down is USO is very strong. XLF ready for a breakout. XLF, breakout, and watch the IWM closely. And the IWM again is your Russell, your cheaper stocks, and it's generally considered a leader in the market. So if the little guys are hurting, then it usually trickles up to the big guys and vice versa. And the little guys have been leading this market for a long time. So that's what I'm going to be watching there. So now that we're into a daily chart, basically this is my daily chart and this is my weekly chart, and we're going to take the last little bit of just scanning. So first I'm going to go over and I'm actually going to, you're going to have to deal with my face full screen here for a second. I apologize. Oh, look at this. I got to do something with this thing. I just want to make sure I've got my Brokerage Plus module in privacy mode first, which is something they added that's new for me, which is great, which is one of the reasons I started streaming. So here we are. So I have to review what I'm in, and I have to review what I traded. So this is right, my real live portfolio. You can see today wasn't the best, obviously, but that's fine. That's just how it works. Overall, I've got some good open P&Ls. All right, so we're going to push this and we're going to put this over here. So basically what I just do here is I'm reviewing. These aren't all the trades that I took. I'll try to dig up some of those trades as well, like kind of what I took throughout the week, what I've been into and out of. INO was just a day trade, so we'll ignore that. I bought it here and then I just sold up there. That was just a intraday gap scalp. But AMP, basically what I'm trying to look for here is I'm trying to say, okay, what's working, what's not, what should I keep, what should I kill, have some thoughts on, are my stops in a place that makes sense, things like this. So AMPE, we're long from 184, which was a breakout of just this kind of 3 inside candle and up. So we took that. We're currently up about 1,000 in that, and we have our stop right here, which locks in about 500. And I think that's a pretty logical place for the stop, right below those 3 candles. So that one's fine. And now we're going to go into Twitter, which is a big gap, and continue on here. It's just a gap and go play. That's fine. We're going to focus on, I have multiple accounts and some are more complex than others. So let's just go through, this is my retirement account. So there's INO, that day trade that I made. SLS, we're in SLS from 624, but we actually took out half of the position here, which that P&L is not showing. But I'm fine where that stop is. And it got touched today and then not violated. So if we get kind of back under 9, let me actually just drag that. If we get back under 9 on Monday, I'm going to be out of this. It's just probably going to not be super interested. VTIL, we bought just today, and I can see after hours, if that's correct, that's doing shitty. So that might just be a stop out the next day. Just breaking out of this kind of long-term base here, trying to see if we get a pop to fill this gap, maybe up in the 35 area. So nothing to do there. YLN, nothing to do here either. This is another one where I bought at 1784, you can see right here, and yesterday it made this big spike. I talked about it on Twitter. I took out half of my position up here. It came back down. You can see the buy ticket that's happening right here, so I reload it on that. So then the game plan is I'm going to protect this entry. If we continue to push higher, great, I was able to reload. And then if not, that's fine. And let's just look through some of these positions here. Laser is an interesting one. Let me zoom. Okay, so that Laser's super. So I picked up Laser here at 3502. I think I'm going to leave the stop where it is. Basically what I'm looking for is to see if this rounded base continues higher. Lasers in the EV space, they make LiDAR. This particular buy ticket is from today. This is going to be my average price at 35.02. I bought some of this, I think, a little bit lower, and then I bought a little bit more today when it looked on the intraday chart like it was going to get going. Didn't quite do that, but I think we have a fairly okay short float on this one as well. Nope, we don't have short float data in mind. Just be in my mind. They make LiDAR sensors or something for self-driving vehicles. Don't really care about that. What else do I have that I want? NMFC, I'm out of. This was quick. I was in here. My stop was only 20 cents away. And the problem with that is as you guys know, I do a risk per trade, right? So I may risk $500 to $1,000 on a trade. And when you buy and the robot puts your stop very, very, very close and you're risking a large amount, it means the amount of shares you're taking are huge. So I actually kind of stepped in and got out of this one early. I got out half of it yesterday for about $1,000 and the rest here for 15. And then the last thing I wanted to look at is I bought some KNDI today. I don't have a stop loss on it yet, but the stop is kind of right below these candles. Doesn't really look that good, to be honest. So I'm just making a note to keep a close eye. Keep close eye. KNDI. Hey, Corona, what's going on, man? It has been a while. I'm starting to, you guys probably didn't even notice, but from videos and everything, I took off most of December and then into January and just kind of getting back into it now. So what I did is I batch recorded a shit ton of videos at the end of December. I was writing my CMT level 3, so I just wanted to take the time to study and spend time with family and all of that. Now that that's all done, I'm rolling towards stuff. Like I've got a website I'm going to launch soon. I'm going to launch some sort of signal service. I don't know. I'm raring to go and I'm looking for direction, if that makes any sense. So let's get out of that, and then let's get out of this, and let's start going through some of the scans here. So this particular scan, let's do short float. Like that. So this particular scan is a version of the A table, which Andy and Steve made and coined, and he used it all the time, and it produced some good results. It doesn't produce the results that I like, though, so I made some changes to it where I just want to see it, the stocks under certain things. I'm more of a pullback continuation. I'm not trading AMCX here in this move, but what I may do is I may trade it here in the second move. Usually less money to be made from it, but where we go. So I hope everything's going well, Jay. Yeah, you're right. It's been a while since we chatted, so hopefully. So AMCX here is interesting. Television networks, AMC networks. So strong pullback. Look at all the bottoming tails in through here, and it's poking its head up. So I'm gonna like this symbol again. If you guys are new to trade ideas, anytime this little heart's filled in, it means that I liked it. Which just means that it gets automatically added to a list that my robot can trade for me if certain criteria occur. Also means that I will just be alerted when something happens. I have scans up that say, away you go. All right, so IFF, not interested. SKT. So again, this scan is a pretty the long and short of it is it's looking for stocks that are heavily shorted. It's looking for stocks that are incredibly strong from a technical and a fundamental aspect. So they're not just, fly by night companies, they're actual companies that make money and have earnings and revenues and things like this. And then what I do is I just take that data and I look for setups from there, like SPWR, earnings soon, and a big long run up. So I'm not interested. Again, daily chart here and a weekly chart in the corner here as well. XYZI is kind of interesting. This base is going on in through here, but that's not something I will spend too much time focusing on. I never know whether to turn the stream on and whether or not scanning is something that's interesting or not. Whether you guys like to hear my methodologies for what I'm looking at and why. PetMed Express. This is interesting. So January 19th was earnings. So this day, that's when they reported earnings. Tanked off earnings, caught a bid, something rocketed it to near double the price. And then it's pulled back and it's put in this nice base. It's holding the 20-day, it's holding the ADMA. Strong action today with a 31% short float. I want to add that one. If we can hold above this recent high, I think that's interesting. So then this is where something like an anchored VWAP would come in, right? I want to see where's the average market participant from this bottom way up here, and then where is the average market participant from this top? It's going to be way up there as well. So that means that a good target from here, if I end up saying buying it over today's high, would get me in at about 37.50, and if I'm targeting 40, that's about $2 a share. My risk would have to be 35, so the risk reward on this one's not the best. So I'm not super interested there. SBGI. This might be looking a little toppy. If we just look at this pattern, oh geez, that's massive. Let's do that one. Delete this. Possible head and shoulders being formed here, right? If we had a little bit more sideways action and then a continuation. If you look here on the weekly chart, right in through here, you can see we're at some resistance. Hey Sam, how's it going? We're just doing some scanning tonight. We just went through all of the major indices, what I thought about those. Essentially, oil looks very good, energies look very good, technology when it comes to semiconductor looks very good, but we are worried about the Russell and how that's looking. Little topping tail on the weekly chart that was kind of, or the daily chart, no, the weekly chart that was kind of off-putting. So now we're just scanning for a couple individual names so that I can put basically the process now. So step one of the process, look at all of the indexes, try to figure out where the market is, what's going on. Step two is to go through a couple scans and build a big list. I'm talking 10, 15 stocks in the list. Then step three is to narrow them down to maybe 4 or 5 symbols that I'll watch tomorrow, and away it goes. Can I please check? Sure. And that's another thing too, guys. I will do requests of stocks. Also, actually, before I get into this, Sam, let me know your time frame. That's going to matter dramatically. So if you're asking for what stock you want me to look at, include a time frame and include long and short, long or short, and whether or not you have a position or you're interested in taking a position. And then here, hold on, I need to go full screen for this. I am not a financial advisor. I am just some guy with an insane beard I have to do something with that you found on the internet. So don't take financial advice from me. All right. You mean you'll check Tuesday? Yes, Corona. You're right. Sorry. It's a holiday on Monday. But yeah, so so basically I'm going, if I'm going to do hand things, let's just talk for a second. So the long and short of the process, and this is triggering me that this isn't centered. There we go. Can I also make this higher quality? Ooh, high. Oh, wow. Okay, sorry. Hold on. I need more light in here, I think. Oh, there we go. Jeez. Should have left it the other way. Yeah, so the process is big overlook of the market and say, what is the market doing as a whole? What is each individual index in the market doing? From there, let me make a list of 20 stocks. Just hammer things into a list that look remotely interesting. Then come Sunday night, or in this case, Monday night, I will scroll through that list of 15 stocks. I'll pick 4 or 5. Those will be watched the next day, right? So it's very much a start big, narrow in, then get ready for the day's action, where I can either watch that group of stock myself or feed it into the index. So CNK is something that's interesting to me, right? Big strong push up, came down, is holding this market as well. That makes our low bar to get looked at a little bit later. Okay, so both of them are long. I'm going to assume a swing time frame. So OPTN. OPTN, it's interesting looking chart. You're down here on the daily. You've got a long period of time until earnings with a fairly low float. Low floats can be a double-edged sword. Pharmaceutical companies, commercialization of products, ear, nose, and throat and allergy specialists. So nothing really COVID related there, but that's fine. Interesting base. I don't really see a reason to be in or out of this yet, just with my own trading. For me, I would be watching. Why does it keep doing that? I'd be watching this level, right? Until we can break and hold over this, wouldn't be super interested in it. I don't like, I know you're just, so the comment was, well, spring's coming and they do allergy stuff. Yeah, but my theory is if you know that, everyone else knows that, right? So I don't trade off the news. I trade off the trend. So for myself, I always like to have the mantra of make the stock do something. And right now it hasn't. It's still just within this base from $5 to $4. So if it was me, I would just set an alert up right above this high, or you call it 490, 495. And if you see it at 495 and it looks like it might break 5, that's when I'd be interested in picking it up. What's the other one? SCYX. This one's a little bit stronger, which is good. Some relative strength here to the market. Looks like we're pulling back a little bit here. We actually closed just right at the ADMA, and that's a pretty good one. Nice kind of uptrend here. I'd be very interesting. The rejection at these highs would worry me. I'd be very defensive about this. And if you're looking to get in, again, I always say I have lost more money taking stocks anticipating something was going to happen and then have it either not do anything or do the opposite of what I thought than money that I have missed waiting for things to happen and had them not happen, if that makes any sense. So that's what I think of those guys. So that's why you'll always see I will say something. Let's find something I like. Okay, APPN here. It's an interesting look on the stock. It's 21% short float. It's kind of coiling in here. You can see, right? It's creating this kind of tightening pattern above this. It could get going, but you'll notice I always say when this happens, I'm interested in this. So I treat trading kind of like code, right? It's always if this, then this. If this, then this. If this, then this, right? So I never just look at a chart and say, oh, I like it, I'm going to buy it. I always look at it and say, okay, here's the pattern I'm seeing in APPN. Here's the short float that I'm seeing. The disqualifier here for me is that it's February 18th is the earnings. So that's not enough time for me to get a really good trade out of. Maybe I could just take a pop, but I'll look at it after earnings. But you always see, I'll say something like, if we break up here, then I'm interested in a trade with a stop here. So then it's if we break back down here, then I will be stopped out, right? Just if then, if then, if then. And then you're not trying to buy something in anticipation of that thing happening. You're basically just saying, okay, instead of me anticipating, I'm just going to react. Here are the areas in which I'm going to react to stocks if they do something. You'll just stay out of so many bad trades like that. CVM, I'm going to get in. It's got earnings on, or I'm going to put it on my list. It has earnings at the 15th. So that might just be, if it gaps significantly, it may be completely irrelevant. I generally go down this list till I get short floats kind of under 15%. And that's usually when I stop this list. And then I have one more list that I go through. And then we'll look at those stocks. And again, on the weekend, if I have time, I'll click through some more charts, of course. But I want to make sure that I'm set up and good to go. And this is kind of my process, which I was thinking of making a YouTube series about, and tell me if that's something that interests you, where I'm going to call it the last hour trader, where I talk about how you can just work that last hour of the day if you're a swing trader and get something from there. I like 8 here. Data processing, we talked about how software as a service is just unstoppable. Nice strong pull back, putting in this base. If we break out of this base, that's something I'll be interested in taking a look at. Space, really nothing there. CCYC. SIG. Wayfair. Yeah, it's a little bit highly priced. Slower mover. I like to spend time in a little bit more of the volatile space. Home, I'm going to add home here. You can see I drew this line in a while ago. It's just been making this declining highs here and then tightening up here as well, all the way till March 30th for earnings. Tons of time. So we'll keep an eye on that. Anything you make is gold. Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm going to create something, a newsletter, something that, a course, right? Something that gets you guys great content at a really reasonable price and gets me money. That's kind of the way I think about it, is that if I can give you guys something of an extreme value and get rewarded for myself, great. You know, I just don't know what that looks like yet. I'm just still trying to figure that out. So this scan is basically just looking for stocks that are squeezing, stocks that are kind of condensing in range. If you want to just see how it's got a bunch of customs in it, so I unfortunately can't share it. But if you look at our consolidation filters, those will give you a good chance of what to look at. Again, this software, I'm only showing a small part of it, just the scanning and charting capabilities. I also use this for auto trading and algorithmically trading things. And, if I bring up, for example, this, right, this is an algorithm that I'm working on. You can build these things and back test them, come up with a trading strategy, trade them kind of however you would like. And again, if you're not a TraderDia subscriber, link is in the description below. There's also another service that I'm helping them build that we're coming out with soon, where it will be a weekly newsletter. It will give you 5 stocks of stocks that are interesting based off of some quantitative algorithms I've built, and we'll present those to you on a Monday, and then you can do whatever you kind of like with them throughout the week. But let's get to it. I have to go to supper in just a little bit, so I don't want to be too late for that. Geo is interesting, depending on earnings. Geo I've been watching for a couple days now. It's kind of just, I like these washouts that happen here. You've got this nice rounded base, but you have a washout that happened beforehand. This can cause a lot of FOMO later, where people go, holy shit, I sold at 6 and now it's at 10. Holy crap. And then they start to buy, which we know isn't the right move. But KNDI, I talked about when we went over my portfolio holdings, that I have this. It's not looking the best. I'm certainly not going to do anything additional to it. Got to be quick, right? I was looking at this APR for a breakout here. It happened and then right back in. So just, again, mental, and I've got a legit, it's on an iPad, but I've got a legit notepad here where I'm just writing things. So I just noticed for the third time that things are pulling back after they're breaking out. So I'm going to go profits. Quick. Right? Just, you're studying just like you were in school, right? What is it that this is kind of, the charts are your lecturer and what you're studying as well. Oh, X is interesting. X, I think, is one of those things that you watch this base, and if it breaks it down into this base, it could move lower, and if it breaks up, it could look higher. But looking at the weekly chart, that's a pretty orderly pullback right here. Best case, I would say, on X is that we get a breakdown that flushes people to 15 and then a bounce. And as it's ripping back through this base, that's where I'd be super interested in it. Con, we already added. RC, SNCR. So this one is also sorted by short float. So as we get into that lower short float area, not that I think it's kind of any end all be all. It's just, you need to find a time to cut off. GOOS, you can see it's already on my list, but I'm going to keep it on my list. We had this wedge right here that we broke out of and we came back into, and we have a lot of bottoming tails. Decent average daily volume at 400K. And a 10% short float. So it's one of those that if it gets going, it could get going. ATI, Allergen Technologies, earnings out of the way. So I'm going to out. That one's already on the list, or I would have added that one as well. CNX with an engulfing candle today. So we have an engulfing candle here and a wedge going on in through here. We have earnings behind us. We have 3.9 million shares. It's a resource type stock with a 10% short float. So I'm going to add that one. right? So it's starting from scan with back-tested results that work into analysis for me after looking at the market. So you can see when I see a stock, I'm almost like going through a checklist in my head, right? I'm saying, okay, when's earnings? What index is it in? What's the pattern look like? And this is why I always recommend new traders, they develop a trading checklist. I've got it after years in my head, but for the first 5-10 years, you should have your own kind of trading checklist so that you go through those as well, and it will help alleviate errors. PTSX is interesting here with our double touch of 10 and then a straight shot if we break that to 12, which is a nice 20% already on the list. So I must have thought that was a good idea at some point as well. This one's interesting. We have no earnings date and a small short float, but that one's an interesting stock to me. LDX, PRV. CatB. CatB has been a bit of a ball buster. And it looked like it was going to break out here, and then it broke out, and then it came back. But getting very, very tight in through here with earnings a long way away. And now we're into like the 5% short float. So, all right, guys, that's going to be it. Thanks for coming out. It's about an hour. I'm planning on making these streams about an hour long. Let me know what you think, whether or not these are something you want to see more of. Again, I'm back and I'm fired up and ready to go. I just don't know what to do with that, right? So you can hit me up on Twitter, twitter.com/Bonpara, and let me know, right? Let me know what you think I should do for streaming, new video series. What should this course or lesson or picks or what is it that you guys would see that would make your trading better, that I can charge a reasonable price for? No sense hiding the biases, right? Yeah, you have a good weekend too, Sam. I'm going to take off. I'm going to grab supper before I get yelled at for being late. And I will talk to you guys at some point next week. Their videos are edited, recorded, ready to go for the next 3 weeks. So you'll see a lot of videos coming out on the channel as well. All right, guys. Talk to you soon.